Alright guys, welcome back. We are once again in my kitchen and we're going to continue on in the Baking Basics unit. Today on the agenda is scones, and since it's fall, pumpkin is popular, so we're going with the pumpkin spice scone today. A couple things that you should know is that over here I have everything pre-measured. I've got my mise en place. So to say. And the reason I've done this is because I don't want to be fumbling around with everything. I have everything pre-measured, ready to go. I can throw it in my big bowl, chop it up, and move on. So, as far as ingredients and a list of what we have all-purpose flour, brown sugar. I have an extra little bit of flour in case my mixture is too wet. I need to add back to it. We've got butter, and then our leavening agent, baking powder, baking soda in this one. We have our own blend of pumpkin spice, which is on the recipe. But if you buy store-bought pre-mixed pumpkin spice, you can do that as well. But we went ahead and made our own. We've got a little bit of milk and egg, some canned pumpkin puree, and then we have some vanilla. So that's, we're gonna get our flour into the big bowl. We're going to also add our spice blend and our brown sugar and our leavening agent. So we have all of our dry ingredients in the mix here, and I'm going to give this just a quick stir to combine all of these things. And then we have our butter, and this is half a cup of butter, so it's quite a bit of butter, but that's what makes this good. Between the butter and the sugar, fat and flavor, right? That's what we got. That's what we got going on. All right. So the butter, though, I did cut that into little sticks. You can cube it up if you like. It just makes this process a bit easier. So we are going to just cut in with our pastry blender. It's not the scone method. It's actually the biscuit method because we're cutting in the fat. Again, biscuit method, that's going to apply to anything that you're cutting fat into. Pie dough, biscuits of course, scones, and the like. So just get this stuff cut in and it should look like fine, little breadcrumbs. All right, that was a bit of work. I've seen folks that also will use like a food processor and cut that up. But here we've got our blend pretty well mixed. All right, next we've got an egg, milk, and a little bit of shell in here. Weird that. Got these. I'm actually swapping my bowl. I need to beat this up just a little bit. I'm going to also add my vanilla. So I have my liquid components here. Again, milk, egg, and vanilla. So we will just beat this up gently. And then I'm going to also add my pumpkin to the party. So now we've got milk, egg, vanilla, pumpkin concoction. And I'll be honest, this doesn't look very appetizing right here. Get this all combined. All right, and then as I always do, I'm going to make a well in the middle. That's my deal. That's what I do. And now you do too. All right, so we'll get our mixture here. I'm just going to kind of fold this around with my spoon and bring it all together. Just using the back of the spoon to kind of mash it together. Again, I don't want to over mix this. I want to bring it just to the point where it's combined. You can use a wooden spoon or whatever you've got. I wouldn't use a whisk. I wouldn't use something like this. If you use this and mix it, all the dough and batter is going to start to get inside this balloon, and then it will be a bit of a nightmare to get all of that back out later. So just use a wooden spoon or spoon. This is how my grandma would do it. Just use a spoon. And when I say my grandma, I mean everyone's grandma. All right, we've got this in a somewhat formed glob here. I'm just gonna dust my counter. And I usually get my hands floured up. And the reason why is because I don't want the dough to stick to me. So if I flour my hands, the dough is more likely to come away from my hands. All right. So we're just going to kind of mash this together on our board, collecting up all of that little extra flour and those wonderful spices and that brown sugar. So we'll just keep combining this. I probably could have done a little bit more in the bowl than I did, but it's going to be okay. Someone told me one time you need this 20 times. I didn't keep count, so I would imagine we're probably somewhere around 10 at this point. And I'm just going around the board, again, collecting up any of those little bits that got left behind. All right, so it is a little bit wet, so I'm just going to add a little bit of flour to the surface, both sides of this, just so when I cut it, it's not too sticky. All right. Then I have a bench scraper here that I'm going to use. And I'm going to just use my hand to kind of mash this out. And this doesn't have to be perfect. I know that some of you are perfectionists. I'm just going to make this into a rectangle. Some folks will make a circle. I'm going to make triangles out of mine, or triangle sort of shapes. All right, so we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to get this all cleaned up. We'll get this cut, panned up, and in the oven. We'll be right back. All right, all cleaned up. I collected myself a sheet pan, and I have a little piece of parchment in the bottom. If you don't have parchment, you can just do a little pan spray, or you can actually go right on the sheet pan with these. They shouldn't stick. You should be okay. But I always use parchment. It's just my thing. All right, so I have my dough into this rectangle, and my first cut is going to be right down the center of this. And I will typically just dust my blade with just a little bit of flour because I don't want this to stick to my blade either, okay? This is actually where we use our bench scraper, and I'm not sure why I'm using my bench scraper. So, we grab my bench scraper. So, we're gonna go right down the center of this, so we have a big T, right? And then I'm gonna go again, I'm gonna go again, so that we have 8 rectangle sort of shapes. All right, so we have our eight pieces. Then you can go right to the sheet pan with this just as it is, or this one's kind of a weird shape, so that one's going to go just as it is. But I like to cut these into little triangles like I'm doing here. Okay, you can make these any size that you want. I like to make these just, I don't know, 3 or 4 bites big. So I don't go giant on these. Okay. So we're going to get these all cut up and broken down, and then we'll come back. I need a second sheet pan here. All right, guys, so we have our scones all broken down into these, I don't know, they're probably about the length of a finger, 2.5 inches by about an inch tall. This does fall into our quick bread category because we're not using yeast, we're not building up a ton of gluten, and then also our ratio on this is about a 3 to 1. 3 parts flour, 1 part liquid. So in that liquid is egg, milk, Our pumpkin is all part of that, all right? So we got these spaced out about an inch or so, because these are going to rise up and puff up in the oven. So make sure you give them a little bit of room, because you don't want these to end up touching, because they won't look as cute. So if it looks good, it tastes better. Someone told me that a long time ago. I've got these all ready to go in the oven. We'll throw these in the oven, 400 degrees, 10 to 12 minutes. I'm going to do 10 minutes because I can always add more time, but I can't take it away. So I'm going to go ahead and get these in the oven, and we'll come back when these are coming out. All right, guys, it's been about 12 minutes. We hit the 10-minute mark, and they just weren't quite done. So I added 2 more minutes to it. I do have a couple things here. We're gonna make a glaze, so we're almost done. We'll turn the timer off. We're gonna pull these out. We need to let these cool down completely because we are gonna make a glaze with, I've got some powdered sugar here, and then more of that pumpkin spice blend. So we're gonna add a little bit of milk to this to thin it out, and then we'll split this into 2 separate bowls, add some of our spice blend, and then we'll do a double drizzle. These are gonna be dynamite. So let's take a peek at these. And you can see those have risen up really nicely. If you're not sure if they're done, you can take a look at some of these here inside. I can see a couple of these as they were rising, they split. So you can, like if you want to cheat, you can take one and open it up and just make sure that it's not still doughy inside. I'm not going to do that. I'm pretty confident that mine are all set. I'm going to let these just hang out on the sheet pan for just about 2 or 3 minutes until they're a little bit cool to the touch, and then I'll take them off of that, put them on a wire rack so that they can cool. And then once these are completely cooled down, we'll come back, we'll make our glaze, and we'll get these things all set and ready. See you soon. All right, it's been about an hour since these scones have come out of the oven, and they are completely cooled. It's really important before you do any sort of glaze on any sort of baked good that you let that come completely to room temperature. And the reason why, if you don't, if it's still warm and you put this glaze on, it's just gonna melt into your product. So here's our quick rundown. I have on the recipe 2 different glazes, but I'm gonna make them at once. The recipe tells you to do half a cup and a tablespoon, or half a cup of confectioner sugar and a tablespoon of milk, and then a half a cup and a tablespoon. I'm just going to do it all together, and then I'll split this glaze here into 2 separate bowls, and then I'll just add my my pumpkin spice to half of it. Okay, and that way we have 2 different colors as far as the glaze goes. All right, so here's the. You don't want to make your glaze too thin, so. I didn't use all of my milk, you can see. I started with some, and I can always add more, but if you put too much liquid, milk, lemon juice, water, whatever you're using for your glaze, if you add that all in, and it's too thin, you're gonna have to backfill it with more powdered sugar. So what I'm looking for as well when I'm doing my glaze is that when I whisk it, I can basically do a figure 8 on mine without any, without it dissipating too quickly. All right, so we have, actually, it does need a little bit more. It's just a little bit too thin. I want to make sure I do this right. So you should be able to do a figure 8 on top of this without it losing its shape before it dissipates back into the icing. It's all mixed in here. Yeah. So, on my whisk, I'm basically just letting this fall, and I'm doing a figure 8 in the bowl, and you should be able to see it in there as it falls. All right. So I'm a little more happy with this. And I'm going to take this other bowl, and I'm going to take half of this glaze, or the best of your ability, half of the glaze. I don't know how you separate half of the pourable liquid. And you don't need a ton. Okay, and then I'm going to take my, I'll actually do this over here, my pumpkin spice, and we'll mix this in. or a drop. I'm using weird measuring terms like from the measuring fail video. All right, so here is our deal. I'm gonna get a fork. I'm gonna transfer this over. All right, so we are ready to go with our glaze. And typically when I do this, I'll go one direction with one color glaze and another direction with the other so that we get a crisscross pattern on top. So I'm using this fork and the tines of it. So I'm just gonna mix this glaze and then we're just drizzling right over the top. And I have mine suspended over the cooling rack, or with the cooling rack, so that I don't get puddles of glaze on the bottom of my scones. You can do this or not. I'm gonna do all 4 rows here. Cameraman's mouth is watering back there, I think. I feel like I need to get one more. A little left here. Fork's not really fitting in the bowl so well. Oh, all over the counter. All right, it's gonna have to work. All right, so there's that one. Then I'm going to turn these guys. And then we have our spice glaze. And usually I'll let this cool for just a few minutes before I go with the other glaze, but we got places to be, so we're going to get through this. All right, guys, so we have these all glazed up. We're gonna let them just sit here for just a couple of minutes, let that glaze harden up just a little bit, and then we'll get these plated up, make them look pretty, take a picture for the final work. When you guys do these scones, know that you can do any flavor you want. I'm doing pumpkin because that's what I like. So, hope you guys enjoyed, hope you learned something, and we'll see you next time.